In the quiet town of Eloma, the sun rose gently over cracked roads and old buildings, but one house remained silent, too silent. That house belonged to Mama Eniola and her 9-year-old daughter, Tami. The neighbors often walked by quickly, never asking questions. The curtains were always closed. Nobody heard laughter from inside. The only sounds were distant screams or loud thuds that quickly faded. Tami was a small girl, skinny for her age, with big eyes and a timid voice. Her father, Mr. Doughton, had died when she was just 5. He was kind, always carrying her on his shoulders, telling her bedtime stories, and kissing her forehead at night. But after the car accident, everything changed. Her mother turned into someone else. Tami didn't understand grief then. All she knew was that love disappeared the day her father's heart stopped beating. She hoped her mother would heal. Instead, the house turned into a prison, and Tami became a prisoner without chains. Each day, she woke up early to clean, cook, and sweep before school. Any mistake, missing a spot, breaking a cup, or answering too softly, was met with shouting or slaps. "You're just like your useless father," Mama Eniola would say. The words stung more than the beatings. They lived like shadows in that house, one angry, one scared. But Tami never cried in public. She wore long sleeves to cover bruises and smiled when spoken to. "I'm fine," she always said. No one questioned her. She had learned early that people only believed what they wanted to see. So she stayed quiet, keeping her pain hidden in silence. Tami walked to school each day with her head down. She didn't walk too fast or too slow, just enough to avoid attention. The school gate was a relief, a temporary escape from the pain at home. But even at school, she stayed quiet. She didn't join in games. She didn't laugh like the others. She just sat alone under the mango tree during break time, reading or drawing in her little book. Her classmates thought she was just shy. Some called her the ghost girl. Others ignored her. Her teacher, Miss Nkem, noticed her silence. Tami was always the first to submit her homework. Her handwriting was neat, her answers correct, yet her eyes looked distant. "Tami, are you okay?" she asked once. Tami smiled and nodded. "Yes, Ma," she said quickly. But Miss Nkem saw the way she flinched when someone raised their hand too fast or dropped a book too loudly. Something was not right. One afternoon, while helping the children prepare a class drama, Miss Nkem noticed Tami pulling her sleeves down. It was very hot, and all the children were sweating in short sleeves, except Tami. "Aren't you hot?" Miss Nkem asked gently. Tami shook her head. "No, Ma. I'm fine." But her voice trembled. Miss Nkem didn't push further that day, but she made a note in her diary. "Follow up on Tami. Watch closely." Back at home, Tami's life felt like a punishment. As soon as she entered the compound, her mother's voice rang out. "Where have you been? Look at the time." Tami looked at the clock. She was only 10 minutes late. "There was traffic," she said. Slap. "Liar," her mother shouted. "You think I don't know what you're doing outside? You want to disgrace me." Tami bit her lip to stop the tears. She never cried in front of her mother. Crying made it worse. Crying made her mother angry. "Go inside and wash the plates," Mama Eniola snapped. Tami obeyed quietly. She washed the plates, cleaned the floor, and swept the front yard. She didn't stop until everything sparkled. Still, her mother found fault. "Why is this plate still wet? Do you want to kill me with laziness?" she shouted again. Tami just nodded and redid everything. By the time she finished, it was dark. Dinner was cold yam and palm oil. Tami ate in silence on the floor, while her mother watched TV, laughing loudly. That laugh, it wasn't joy. It was sharp and painful, like broken glass. Tami wished she could disappear. She missed her father. She used to fall asleep in his arms, but now, she slept curled up on a thin mat, listening to her mother snore in the next room. She often whispered, "God, please help me." But there was never an answer. Saturday mornings were the worst. No school, no escape. Tami would wake up before the sun to avoid trouble. She scrubbed the bathroom, fetched water from the tap outside, and cleaned every window. But her mother always found something to beat her for. That morning, she forgot to dust the picture frame in the sitting room. A picture of her father, smiling. Her mother noticed and flew into rage. Why are you always forgetting things? Are you trying to spite me? Before Tami could speak, the cane landed on her back. Over and over. She didn't scream. She had learned to take it quietly. Screaming made her mother feel more powerful. After the beating, Tami sat behind the house and hugged her knees. Her back burned. Her eyes watered. She wasn't allowed to play outside or visit neighbors. Other children passed by, laughing, holding balloons, going to birthday parties. Tami watched from behind the curtain, invisible. One of the neighbors, Auntie Ronk, once asked, "Why don't we see your daughter?" Mama Iniola replied, "She's a stubborn child. Always causing trouble." No one asked again. School became Tami's only light. Even though she didn't speak much, she listened. She soaked in the lessons and always got top marks. Miss Nkem continued to watch her. One day, after a test, she called Tami aside. "I need help arranging some books. Can you stay back after class?" Tami nodded. When the other children left, Miss Nkem closed the door gently. She pulled up a chair and sat beside her. "Tami, how are things at home?" Tami froze. "They're okay," she said. "Can I see your hand?" the teacher asked softly. Tami hesitated. "I just want to check something." Slowly, Tami raised her sleeve. There, on her thin arm, were fresh welts. Some still red. Some turning purple. Miss Nkem's eyes filled with tears. She didn't show panic. She just touched Tami's hand gently and said, "Thank you for showing me." For the first time, someone had seen her pain. Noticed it. A tear escaped Tami's eye. "Please don't tell anyone," she whispered. "She'll beat me more." Miss Nkem knelt beside her. "Tami, this is not your fault. No one deserves this. I promise I will help you." That night, Miss Nkem couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Tami. The fear in her voice. The pain in her eyes. She knew she had to act quickly. The next morning, she called the local child welfare office. A kind man named Mr. Kola answered. She explained everything. He listened carefully. "We'll visit the home today," he said. At school, Tami sat in her usual seat, quiet, withdrawn. But during lunchtime, two strange people came in with Miss Nkem. One was Mr. Kola. The other, a woman with a notepad. "Tami, can we speak with you outside?" they asked. Tami looked at Miss Nkem. She nodded gently. Outside, they asked her questions. She answered with her eyes fixed on the ground. "Does your mother beat you often?" "Yes." "Does she insult you or call you names?" "All the time." "Do you feel safe at home?" Tami paused. "No," Mr. Kola sighed. "Thank you for being brave." That day, Tami didn't go home. When her mother came to school to pick her up, the police were waiting. "What is going on?" she shouted. "Where is my child?" Mr. Kola approached calmly. "Madam, you are being investigated for child abuse. Your daughter is now in protective custody." "What nonsense! That girl is lying." Mama Iniola screamed. "I feed her, I clothe her. She's just an ungrateful brat." But her voice did not scare anyone this time. The police officers stood firm. Neighbors who had once stayed silent now came forward. "We've heard the beatings," said one. "We just didn't know how to help," said another. Tami, sitting in the back of the van, saw her mother's face twisted in rage. But for once, she wasn't afraid. She knew she wouldn't be going back to that house. Tami was taken to a safe home run by a kind woman named Mama Peace. There were other children there too, boys and girls with similar stories. Some had scars. Some had nightmares. But they were all healing. Tami was given her own bed, a small bookshelf, and a warm blanket. That night, she lay down carefully. No shouting. No cane. Just soft snoring from the other children. When Mama Peace came in to say goodnight, Tami whispered, "Can I hug you?" Mama Peace smiled. "Of course, my dear." That hug broke something open in Tami's heart. She cried, not from fear, but from the strange feeling of safety. At the safe home, Tami was assigned a counselor, Mrs. Linda, who gently helped her open up. At first, Tami only nodded or shook her head. But slowly, she began to speak. She told her story, not all at once, but piece by piece. Mrs. Linda never rushed her. She always said, "You are not broken, Tami. You are brave." For the first time, Tami began to believe it. She started drawing again. Her drawings were full of bright colors, sunsets, birds, girls smiling. Her school was changed to one nearby, and she made new friends. It was hard at first, but she learned to trust again. One day, during a school debate, she raised her hand to speak. The whole class turned. Her voice was soft but firm. She spoke about kindness and how words can heal or hurt. Everyone clapped. Months passed. Tami became stronger. She no longer flinched when someone raised a hand. She no longer hid her arms. The scars were still there, but they didn't control her anymore. One morning, she was called to the office. Mr. Kola stood there with a letter. "Tami," he said, "your case is closed. Your mother has been sentenced to 3 years in prison." Tami stood still. She didn't smile, but she didn't cry either. "Okay," she whispered. Mr. Kola knelt to her level. "That woman hurt you, but you are not her story. You have your own path now, and we will help you walk it." That evening, Tami sat outside watching the sunset. The sky was orange, full of promise. For the first time, she didn't feel invisible. She felt seen. Tami began to adjust to her new life. Every morning, she woke up to the sound of birds instead of shouting. She brushed her teeth with a smile and took her bath without fear. At breakfast, she sat at a long table with other children. They laughed and passed bread around. It felt strange at first, being around so much joy. But slowly, she joined in. She started giggling at silly jokes. When someone spilled juice, no one got hit. They just laughed and cleaned it up. Mama Peace always said, "This is a home, not a battlefield." Tami kept a small notebook where she wrote down her thoughts. She wrote about her dreams, her fears, and her hope to become a teacher like Miss Nkem one day. "I want to help children like me," she wrote. One day at school, her new class was asked to write a story titled, "A Day I Will Never Forget." Tami stared at the blank paper for a long time. Then she began to write. She wrote about the day Miss Nkem saw her bruises. She wrote about the van, the strange voices, and the first hug from Mama Peace. She didn't write it with sadness. She wrote it with strength. Her teacher, Mr. Gok, was moved when he read it. "Who helped you with this?" he asked. "No one," she replied. "It's my story." He gave her a standing ovation in class. The students clapped. For once, she wasn't the quiet girl in the corner. She was Tami, the brave girl who had survived the unthinkable. Tami's bond with Mrs. Linda, the counselor, grew stronger. They met twice a week to talk and play. One day, Mrs. Linda brought out a mirror. "What do you see?" she asked. Tami looked at the reflection. "A girl," she replied. "Just a girl." Mrs. Linda smiled. "Look again." Tami looked deeper. "She looks tired, but also a strong." Mrs. Linda nodded. "That's what I see too." Tami began to understand that she wasn't weak because of what she had gone through. She was strong because she survived. The bruises on her body faded, but the strength in her heart grew. She started helping the younger kids at the safe home, reading to them and helping them with homework. Mama Peace watched with pride. "You are becoming a light, Tami," she said one night. "And lights don't hide." One weekend, a surprise visitor came to the safe home. It was Miss Nkem. The moment Tami saw her, she ran into her arms. "I missed you," she whispered. "I missed you too," Miss Nkem replied. They sat in the garden and talked for hours. "I always knew something was wrong," Miss Nkem said. "I just didn't want to make it worse." "You made it better," Tami said. "You saved me." Miss Nkem wiped a tear from her eye. "You saved yourself, Tami. I only opened the door." That day, they planted a small flower together near the mango tree. "This will grow strong," Miss Nkem said. "Just like you." News of Tami's strength began to spread. The local government office invited her to speak at a small children's event. At first, she was scared. "What if I forget my words?" she asked Mama Peace. "Speak from your heart," Mama Peace replied. "That's where the real power lives." On the day of the event, Tami stood in front of a room full of children, parents, and teachers. She held the microphone with shaking hands. But when she spoke, her voice was calm. "I used to live in silence. I was hurt and scared. But someone saw me. Someone listened. And I want to tell every child here, you matter. Your pain matters. Speak up. Someone will hear you." The room was silent. Then came applause. Loud, long, and full of emotion. Tami smiled, really smiled. After the event, a woman approached her, holding the hand of a shy little boy. "This is my son, Dapo," she said. "He doesn't talk much. He's been through a lot. But after hearing you, he whispered to me, 'She's like me.'" Tami knelt down and looked at the boy. "Hi, Dapo," she said. "You're not alone." The boy nodded slowly. That moment stayed in her heart for days. She realized her pain had become a bridge, not just a wound. She was now helping others cross over to healing. Mrs. Linda said, "Pain doesn't always destroy. Sometimes, it transforms." And for the first time, Tami believed it. One evening, while arranging books in the home's little library, Tami found an old photo album. It had pictures of her father. Mama Peace explained that it had been sent by a distant relative. As she flipped through the pages, her heart ached. Her father smiling, carrying her as a baby, holding her mother's hand. "He loved you very much," Mama Peace said. "He would be proud of who you've become." Tami touched the photo gently. "I wish he was here," she whispered. "I think he is," Mama Peace replied. That night, she placed her father's photo on her bedside table. She felt like a piece of her heart had come back home. Months turned to a year. Tami continued healing. Her schoolwork remained excellent, and she grew confident enough to join the drama club. On stage, she played roles that made people laugh, cry, and think. One day, she wrote and performed a play about a girl who found her voice after years of silence. The audience was moved to tears. At the end of the play, they gave her a standing ovation. "You have a gift, Tami," her teacher said. "You are more than a survivor. You are a leader." And that's how her journey toward becoming a child advocate began. On her 12th birthday, the entire safe home gathered to celebrate her. There was cake, balloons, singing, and a handmade card signed by all the children. Tami wore a new dress, and her eyes sparkled with happiness. "I didn't think I would ever celebrate a birthday again," she said. Mama Peace kissed her forehead. "Every year from now, you'll celebrate life." Later that night, she sat by her window and whispered, "Thank you," to the stars. She didn't know who she was thanking, God, her father, the universe, but she felt grateful. For safety. For kindness. For being alive. Tami began to volunteer with child support groups alongside Mrs. Linda and Mr. Kola. They visited schools, churches, and community centers. She would share her story, not the pain alone, but the hope after it. "I am not what happened to me," she would say. "I am who I choose to become." Each time she spoke, more children came forward. Some whispered their secrets. Some cried. Some just held her hand. And each time, Tami listened. She had once been the silent girl behind the curtain. Now she was a voice, clear, steady, and strong. One afternoon, after a school presentation, a woman approached Tami and introduced herself as Mrs. Adeola, a journalist from a national newspaper. "I heard your speech," she said. "It moved me. I'd love to write an article about your journey, if you're willing." Tami paused. The idea of her story being shared across the country made her heart race. "Will it help other children?" she asked. "Absolutely," the journalist replied. Tami agreed. The next week, they sat under the mango tree at the safe home while Tami shared everything. Her father's love, her mother's change, the beatings, the silence, the rescue, and the healing. Mrs. Adeola listened with tears in her eyes. When the article was published, it was titled, "The Girl Who Spoke Through Silence." People all over the country read it. Some wept. Others donated to child support centers. Tami had lit a fire far beyond her town. The safe home began receiving more calls. Children who had been suffering in silence were now being rescued. Tami's story had opened doors. Mrs. Linda hugged her one day and said, "You've become a ripple in a river. You may never know how far it travels." Tami smiled. "I just want no child to feel forgotten like I did." In her free time, she helped organize drama clubs, creative writing groups, and healing circles for the younger kids. She became like a big sister, gentle, patient, and kind. When the smaller children had nightmares, she would hold their hands and whisper, "You're safe now." It felt like everything she had gone through had meaning now. Her pain was no longer just pain, it had become purpose. One rainy day, a visitor came to the safe home. It was Auntie Ronk, the neighbor from her old street. She looked older, more tired. "I heard about what happened from the newspaper," she said softly. "I'm sorry I didn't speak up when I saw the signs." Tami didn't say anything for a while. Then she stood and said, "You see it now. That's something." Auntie Ronk nodded, tears in her eyes. "I want to do better. I want to help other children too." Tami reached into her bag and handed her a flyer for a volunteer training with the local child protection group. "Then start here," she said. That moment was small, but powerful. Tami had learned forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant letting go of the weight others left on her shoulders. Her relationship with Mrs. Linda deepened. Sometimes, they would sit for hours without even talking, just coloring, reading, or listening to soft music. "You don't always have to speak to be heard," Mrs. Linda would say. Tami appreciated those moments. She was growing, but she still had days when memories hurt. The difference now was that she didn't face them alone. "Do you think I'll ever be fully okay?" she asked once. Mrs. Linda replied, "You already are. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means knowing your story didn't end at the worst part." That sentence stayed with Tami. She began writing a book in her spare time, a story about a girl who found her voice in a world that wanted her quiet. At school, Tami's transformation inspired others. A girl named Simbi, who once bullied quieter students, came to her one day. "I read your article," she said, awkwardly. "I'm sorry. I didn't know you were going through that." Tami looked at her and replied, "A lot of people don't know what others carry inside." From that day, Simbi changed. She stopped mocking people and started helping them instead. The teachers noticed, and so did the students. Tami's courage wasn't just healing herself, it was changing others too. In the class elections, she was voted Most Inspiring Student. She didn't campaign. She didn't expect it. But when her name was called, she stood proudly and said, "I dedicate this to every child who has been hurt in silence. You are not alone." The more Tami grew, the more her confidence blossomed. She began attending youth leadership workshops, where she learned public speaking, project planning, and advocacy. She met other teenagers who had faced hardship, orphans, survivors of trafficking, children who had lived on the streets. "We are not broken," one of them said during a group session. "We are battle-tested." That sentence made Tami smile. They all had scars, but they carried them like medals. At one of the workshops, she met a boy named Tope, who had once lived in a home where he was locked in a room for days. He barely spoke at first. But when he heard Tami's story, he opened up. "You made me believe again," he said. That night, they sat under the stars and made a pact to always use their stories to protect others. One weekend, Mama Peace took Tami and a few others to visit a village where a new safe shelter was being built. The children helped plant flowers around the yard and painted colorful murals on the walls. Tami painted a large sunflower and wrote beneath it, "Let every child bloom." A small girl at the village asked her, "Did someone hurt you before?" Tami bent down and smiled. "Yes. But I'm safe now. And you will be too." The girl hugged her tightly. In that hug, Tami felt the power of healing repeating itself, passing from one heart to another. It was no longer just her journey. It had become a movement. Meanwhile, Tami's mother was still serving her prison sentence. One day, Mama Peace received a letter addressed to Tami. It was from her mother. She held it for a while before deciding to read it. It was handwritten, shaky, and short. It said, "I don't know if you'll ever forgive me. I was broken. I took it out on you. I'm sorry. I wish I had been better." Tami read it slowly. Then she folded it and placed it in her drawer. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. Later that night, she told Mrs. Linda, "I don't hate her, but I won't let her back into my life until I'm ready." And that was okay. Healing wasn't about rushing. It was about choosing. As her 13th birthday approached, something inside Tami shifted. She no longer felt like the little girl who was afraid of her shadow. She stood taller. Her voice was steadier. Her dreams were bigger. She wanted to finish school, go to university, and start her own child advocacy foundation. "You're already doing it," Mama Peace said. "But with a degree, you'll fly even higher." Tami smiled. "I want to be someone the younger Tami would have needed." That night, she opened her notebook and wrote a new goal at the top of the page: help 1,000 children speak up. Her birthday celebration that year was held at the Safe Homes Garden. There were fairy lights, music, dancing, and laughter. Former residents who had been placed in loving homes returned to celebrate with her. Mr. Kola came too and handed her a certificate of honor. "For bravery, resilience, and leadership beyond your years," it read. As everyone sang, "Happy birthday," Tami looked around. The children, the lights, the joy. This was home. Not the place she was born in, but the place she was reborn. She stood up, held the microphone, and said, "Thank you for seeing me. For loving me. For reminding me that even broken wings can still fly." And that night, Tami flew, in her heart, in her dreams, and in every child she promised to fight for. Tami's story continued to grow beyond what she ever imagined. A few months after her birthday, she received an invitation to speak at a national child rights conference in the capital city. She was the youngest speaker on the list. "Are you nervous?" Mama Peace asked. "A little," Tami replied. "But I know I'm not speaking for just me. I'm speaking for every child who couldn't." On the day of the event, she wore a simple yellow dress and stood before hundreds of people: lawmakers, teachers, counselors, and activists. Her voice didn't shake. "We need to listen better," she said. "Children don't always know how to scream. Sometimes, their silence is the scream." Her words echoed through the hall. When she finished, people rose to their feet in applause. Some wiped away tears. She had become more than a survivor. She was now a force for change. After the conference, the Minister of Children and Youth Services approached her. "Your voice matters, Tami," he said. "We would like to partner with your safe home to train more teachers on how to detect and report abuse." Tami looked at Mama Peace and Mrs. Linda. They were both smiling. "We'll do it together," she replied. The weeks that followed were filled with meetings, trainings, and new programs. Tami's name was mentioned on radio and TV. But she never let the fame get to her head. She still swept the floor at the safe home. She still read bedtime stories to the younger kids. "Stay grounded," Mama Peace always said. "The taller the tree, the deeper the roots must go." And Tami had deep roots, built from pain, watered with love, and grown through courage. One quiet evening, Tami sat alone in the garden behind the safe home. The stars blinked above her, and a soft breeze danced around. She held her notebook on her lap, now full of words, drawings, and dreams. She turned to the last page and wrote, "Dear younger Tami, you made it. You're safe now. You're strong. And most of all, you are loved." She closed the book gently and hugged it to her chest. The night was still, and her heart was full. The silent cry that once filled her soul had become a powerful voice, a voice that would never be silenced again. Tami never went back to live in her old house. She chose not to. She didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Her past was part of her, but it no longer held her down. She visited her father's grave once a year with a sunflower in hand and whispered, "I'm doing fine, Daddy." She sometimes received letters from her mother, who had completed her sentence and was now part of a rehabilitation program. Tami read the letters but didn't respond. Not yet. She needed time. Healing, she had learned, was not about rushing. It was about protecting your peace and choosing when, and if, you're ready to forgive. For now, she chose to focus on the children who still needed a voice. Because that was who she had become, a protector of the voiceless, a shelter in the storm. Years later, the safe home was renamed Tami's Light Foundation. The sign stood proudly at the entrance, surrounded by sunflowers. Tami, now a grown woman with a warm smile and confident walk, stood by the door, welcoming a new girl into the home. The child was quiet, eyes full of fear, just like Tami had once been. She knelt down, looked into her eyes and said, "You are safe now. I'm here." The girl hugged her tightly. And as Tami held her, she knew one thing for sure. No silent cry would ever go unheard again, not on her watch. The cycle had been broken. The light had won. And Tami had not just survived, she had become the reason others could too. Please, subscribe to African Tales by Helen Gold for more African stories. Comment, like, share, and turn on your notification bell.